Okay, it is 5:30. Call to order the County Board of Supervisors budget work session. Mr. Smith, can you do the invocation and pledge allegiance, please?
Be glad to. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Our Father, thank you for this day that you've given again for us to all live and enjoy. Thank you for all your blessings upon us. We pray that you continue to be with our nation, with our state, with our county as we work through this pandemic. Be with our board tonight as we finish up our budget sessions, and as we look to advertise it, we pray, Lord, that you just guide our thoughts and help us to get everything taken care of in this meeting tonight. For it's in your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Hope everyone is well. Look for a motion to approve our agenda.
This is Supervisor Rebel, so moved.
Supervisor Hatch, second.
All in favor, aye.
Aye.
All right. Moving along, Mr. Shepley, you want to go over the CARES Act update?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to everyone for all the support that you've given us over this period of time. We right now have 22 cases in Grayson County. We seem to be leveling off a little bit, so let's hope that we're at the peak right now and that we're going to be coming down off that. Part of what has happened from a federal response is the passing of the CARES Act. And the CARES Act provided money to counties to be able to recoup any expenses directly related to the coronavirus. And Grayson County has been allotted, based on its population percentage in the state of Virginia, allotted approximately $1.4 million. That I want to make sure that I clarify for you that money can only be accessed to recoup any sort of expenditures that were made directly because of the coronavirus pandemic. Lisa Gayhart and I and Mitch has been added to that group, and Paul are studying as quickly as we can the details of what is eligible for reimbursement through that money. It is right now a very restrictive pot of money, and we spent about an hour on the phone with other counties and towns today, listening to everyone asking the same questions that we had. Can you reimburse first responders? Can you reimburse for the purchase of computers for people that now having to work remotely? There's a million detailed questions that have to be answered before we can actually turn that money into or move it from the fund that will be provided to us into the county coffers. And we have to, as quickly as we possibly can, educate ourselves about what that means for us and how we can maximize on the reimbursement without overstepping the bounds, because the bounds are strict, and there certainly will be repercussions for any counties that step over that line, and we certainly don't want to do that. We want to be able to recoup whatever we're eligible for. One thing we're not eligible for is for any sort of loss of revenues due to the coronavirus. In the CARES Act, we are not. CARES Act money is not available to us to recover lost revenues. So as we're studying this, we're realizing that as we're on the lines with places like Fairfax County and other large counties in the state of Virginia, it's clear that they have teams that have formed that are already deciding which things they're going to go after, and they're sort of taking the lead. The larger counties have taken the lead in this effort, and they're trying to share with the rest of the counties what they've done. But it is something that is actually being sort of, I hate to say this, but it's being made up on the spot. There's not answers to every question that are being asked. Now, we do have a vehicle to ask those questions, though, mainly through Virginia Tech, who has led an effort to bring all of us together to be able to address questions to the state that will help us to be able to maximize on the efforts that we have to try to utilize that money. One thing that we were very happy to see in the CARES Act is that there is some money that is available for small businesses to help with some reimbursement on payroll. And we're trying to get the details of that as we speak, but I'll be working with Chris Butler and the Small Business Recovery Committee to try to translate those opportunities into reality so that we can start to create, Lisa, they called them what, micro?
Yes, some jurisdictions are doing a little micro grant. Micro grants,
Utilizing some of the CARES Act money. There is a separate bill that's been submitted or passed through the House. It's called the HEROES Act. It will probably undergo some pretty substantial alterations before it's approved through the Senate, but we can't really rely on that right now. Right now, we need to focus on the actions that we've taken by creating a $1.4 million contingency fund and concentrate on how we can access the money that the state is giving us, that the federal government's giving us, to reimburse any expenses related to the coronavirus. We'll keep you updated. I mean, you could almost take a full-time person and devote them to researching how to maximize recovery of money from the CARES Act, and we're trying to piece it together with the limited resources that we have, but we're on top of it. That's my CARES Act update. I'd be glad to answer any questions that anybody might have on that.
Hey, Bill, this is John. I got one question.
Sure.
You know, there was a proposal from last week to hire a consultant. Is that permanently, do we need to table that indefinitely based on the work you all are doing?
I mean, we need help right now. And certainly, I thought the point that you had about will this CARES Act money stave off the situation and make it so that we're not in as urgent of a need for that person as we would have been. Well, once we dug a little deeper into the CARES Act restrictions, the money that we need for our businesses, there's some money through the CARES Act, but there's a wide variety of grant opportunities. They're mainly smaller grants that might be between $10,000 to $50,000. There's about 100 of them. And what we don't want to do is leave those on the table. We want to be able to seek those out and have somebody banging away at trying to bring money in here right now. I'd say that the situation is an emergency in regards to our small businesses. That would be the focus of what we would do with a grant person right now, is bring them in and have them bang away at those grants that are sitting out there that the larger counties are able to access because they have teams of people ready to do it. We need to not miss out on our fair share of that. And I think it's a very urgent need to try to bring somebody on for maybe 5 to 10 hours for a week, not a full-time job, but in order to start working away at 5 or 6 of these grant opportunities. That would be my recommendation to the board.
Bill, this is Tom.
I apologize for the missing it, the grant discussion. It's under old business coming up, but I guess my more specific question was the grant person that was proposed was to do what you just described, which was focused on small business grants available to the counties, that sort of thing. It wasn't on the CARES Act specifically. So is your assessment that the proposal to bring on this grant consultant, would that person also be the CARES Act person? Or are you thinking that given that this thing's relatively new, that no one really has any expertise in it, do you think that that person can handle it, or are you talking about maybe another person? I mean, what's the thought in relation to the CARES Act specifically?
That's a great question, and that's something we've been talking about almost all day in here today. And we think that bringing somebody in to handle the CARES Act, that the timeline of connecting them with the players that need to be providing information and the coordination of it, we don't have the time to waste in bringing somebody in who is going to be our leader in the CARES Act definitions. So I've asked Lisa Gayhart to do that for us. And what I've told her is that she needs to let me know if she's going to need some additional assistance to her in her regular job here in order to be able to still continue to focus and garner the information that we need to access the money from the CARES Act, but still be able to continue to do her job here. I think that there still is a need for a part-time grants person to seek out, to help us with the CARES Act, but also to do some of the legwork for the CARES Act, but also to try to seek out those but those smaller grants that would really help our small businesses.
Okay, I'm clear
Bill,
now. Thanks.
Bill.
Sure. Yes, sir.
Bill, this is Tom. I've read the CARES Act. Excuse me?
It's just you. There's an echo from your phone.
Okay. I've read the CARES Act and have looked at the requirements for funding at the county level. And I understand it, but it appears that it's kind of skewed to the larger counties where you've had the largest number of cases.
Yeah.
And I think while 1.4 million sounds like a lot of money that we could grab onto, I would agree with you that our ability to meet their requirements for documentation to substantiate our expenditures, I'm not sure it's going to lead to that much money coming into the county.
We all agree with you, Tom.
Yeah, I do agree with you, though, 110%. There are a lot of grant opportunities, call them micro, call them specific to certain issues. I just think we need to really focus on getting a strong grant writer to help us access those funds, because I think we'll have a lot more opportunity to be successful if we apply for the right grant and do a good job at doing it. I think the revenue opportunity for the county is much greater on that side than it is on the CARES Act side.
I agree with you. Now that could all change if the HEROES Act were to go through in the way that it's designed now, but it's going to be altered pretty significantly for political reasons. But I mean, I get messages from the state every second or third day with a new batch of grant opportunities. And we just there's not anybody to bang away at them. We'd love to have a contracted person do it. And I believe it is an emergency situation. Steve Durbin, now when I asked Steve Durbin, for our legal counsel, for his opinion, it was before the CARES Act came out. So I've got to make sure to say that he agreed that it was an emergency situation before the CARES Act. My opinion is it still is an emergency situation, and that we should move as quickly forward as we can with bringing the person that stepped forward, that has the skills that we need to help us out.
Those grants have deadlines.
Okay, you have anything else, Mr. Shipley, on the CARES Act?
That's it. I'll keep you. Lisa Gayhart has something that she'd like to share.
Mr. Chairman, we will need your signature to certify to receive those CARES Act funds, so if we can coordinate when we can get your signature.
We have to do that by May the 22nd in order to access that money. And the first half of that money is to be sent to us on June the 1st. And so we've alerted the Treasurer's office and, worked out the details of making that happen. We just have to learn what we're eligible to utilize it for. But I believe that Supervisor Revels is correct that the greater opportunity to access funds that will help the county in the economic recovery component will lie through the grants that are outside of the CARES Act.
Mr. Belton,
Yes, ma'am.
I just wanted to tell Mr. Shepley and his crew that I have also read through this, and I thank you for the time and the effort you put in. And I also agree with Mr. Levels where our success may lie. But I do thank you all so very much for all your hard work.
Thank you very much, Supervisor Sutherland. We appreciate that a whole lot.
Okay, while we talked about the grants consultant in our old business. Now, I think about a year ago we did vote to have a grant writer, but we never did. So this would work. Okay.
Great. So one of the questions would be, passing of the ordinance. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lisa.
Don't have it right here in front of me, but that's the resolution. If we're still talking about the grants consultant, passing the resolution that this would be in an emergency hire,
Right.
And in order to forego normal procurement procedures.
Yeah.
Hey, Ms. Shepley, what do we think the fee is, or is it an hourly fee? Is it a certain contract fee for, what's I didn't see that in the proposal in the ordinance. I don't think it would be there anyway, but is that, what's that look like?
The hourly rate is what's proposed, and if you all agree that we would move forward with is $60 per hour, which was substantially lower than some of the other information that I got just in my own research on the internet. It looked like the going rate, not for especially for coronavirus related activity, but for grant writing on contract was about $100 per hour. It's a local person that can actually travel here to see us in person when needed. So I thought that was beneficial. And this person has successfully written 55 grants that have been awarded in their career. So that's the long answer to a short question.
No, that's good. But the follow-up is, if it's an emergency ordinance, does this contract expire at the termination of the emergency, or we're just able to do the procurement under this, but once she's on board, the contract is good for a year, whatever the terms are, and then it expires. Does that make sense, what I'm asking?
It does, and that's a great question.
Because it is an emergency.
But what he's asking is, once the emergency decree terminates, does that also terminate it does not terminate? We know that. We know that. We probably have to.
That's the reason we was able to do it. Because of the emergency that's going on and the nature of what's going on is the reason we was able to forego that. Otherwise, we'd have had to follow.
But I think what Supervisor Fant's asking is, what happens when the declaration of the emergency runs out? Does that also terminate the contract with the consultant?
We can check on that, but I wouldn't think so.
Is that what you were asking, Supervisor Fant?
Yeah, that's exactly right. I just want to make sure that it's not tied to the emergency is giving us the authorization to bypass the traditional or normal process. But if we approve it, the contract, I'm assuming, will stay in force until the terms of the contract have expired.
That's our understanding.
Yeah.
We will double check on that, but that is our understanding too.
Okay. Over to you,
Bill. Bill, this is Tom. I have another question. I'm not sure you can do this in government, but I know in the private sector, we often had a lower hourly fee with a success bonus built in. In other words, we might pay $40 an hour, but every grant they received, there was an administrative override built into it.
Yeah.
Has that been discussed? Is that even possible in a governmental situation?
Yeah, we have discussed that. Do you want to add something, Lisa?
We have discussed that. I do think that it is possible, and I will, I hope that's something that we can have the flexibility to work with legal to make sure that we don't cross any ethical lines.
I just think that puts some skin in the game for the person. They're not just writing to be writing; they're writing to be successful.
Yeah, I think that's worth exploring. We will explore that.
Okay, thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, would you mind if I read the resolution for an emergency procurement under Virginia Code Section 2.2-4303F?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you. Whereas the board is mindful of the impact that the COVID-19 emergency has made on the county in terms of public health, disruption of the local economy, and burdens on local services and schools, among other significant impacts to the community, and finds that due to these many impacts, it is necessary to procure the services of a grants writer to obtain available grant funding to enable the county to obtain available grant relief and other funds available from federal, state, and private sources. And whereas the board is aware of the availability of a consultant that is qualified and a reputable vendor for these services, and finds that due to the exigent, yes is the way you pronounce it, nature of the grants process and the need to timely respond to COVID-19 and obtain available funding, that the services should be procured on an emergency basis. And whereas the board finds that it is not practicable to engage in the formal procurement process due to the exigent nature of the COVID-19 crisis, therefore be it resolved that the Grayson County Board of Supervisors hereby approves the proposed contract with the consultant and authorizes the chair or alternatively the county administrator execute the contract on the county's behalf. And now therefore be it further resolved that the Board of Supervisors hereby directs the county staff to place a written finding to this effect in the contract file and to establish notice of this emergency procurement on the county's website in conformity with Virginia Code Section 2.2-4303F adopted this 18th day of May, 2020 in the county of Grayson, Virginia.
Okay, Mr. Shepley, we're looking for a motion and a second to approve this resolution.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve it.
Here's
This is Supervisor Fan, I second.
motion and a second. Roll call vote on this. Oh, Mr. Fan,
Yes, roll call.
Okay. So I'm assuming Mr. Plant and Mr. Revels is okay.
Yeah.
Mr. Hatch,
Yes.
Ms. Sutherland,
Aye.
and I also aye. So motion carried.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I think it'll pay for itself. Back to old business. Last week we did a ordinance instituting emergency procedures in response to COVID-19. And Mr. Fandy made a motion and Mr. Hash seconded it. We need a roll call to approve that. I guess we just voted straight out. Mr. Fandy.
Aye.
Mr. Hash.
Aye.
Rev.
Aye.
Ms. Sutherland.
Aye.
And also aye. Okay. Through old business. Now we get on to the budget work session. We had a request from Grayson Glow. We want to discuss that. That was a request of 5,000. Sent that to me. Town of Independence did their 10,000, asking us for 5. Discussion.
Well, I know when we had our fundraisers, people from all around came to support us.
Okay, I do know that they had to spend money early to get discounts and
Hey, Supervisor Ms. Shepley, I'm having a real hard time understanding the chairman. What are we discussing now?
It is a little bit distorted, Supervisor Belton.
well, I'm on my cell phone. It's what I have been.
Supervisor Fant, we were talking about a request from Grayson Glow for $5,000 for next year for the Christmas lights, and it was Chairman Belton had opened up the floor for any discussion of the request.
Town of Independence has given 10,000.
Yeah, I'm in favor of the request. I guess my thought was, I think 5,000 is what we gave last year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Given the challenges of fundraising, and I think Supervisor Sutherland brought it up, is it possible to bump that up a little bit, maybe 7,500, just because the difficulty they're going to have in raising the funds that they need to on the private side? Is that, from the budgetary standpoint, is that something the board would entertain or could entertain?
Mr. Chairman, this is Tom. we're asking the sheriff to give up money. We're asking the schools to give up money. We're asking our department directors to give up money. I don't see giving more money. I'm sorry. We're asking other people to bleed a little bit, and I just think it's not so much the money, it's the perception of it, in my opinion. I have problems with giving more than they're asking for.
Yeah, I don't have, Tom, that's fine. It was just a difficult, it's a difficult, just like the fire and rescue folks are having a hard time raising the funds. It was just a thought. I'm comfortable with the request. What I recommended to Jeff Miller when he called me about it was if this is going to be a reoccurring request, it needs to get into the normal process like all the other requests were prior, that have been going on for a while. And so I'm comfortable with the 5,000. It was just a thought given that the challenges of fundraising this year.
Okay, any other comments on the Grayson Globe?
Bill, does this also saying that the funds we gave last year to other communities will also be matched in the current year?
Yep, absolutely.
And do you recall, I don't know if you have that available, but do you recall what that is? What that amount is?
It was $500 each if they had reimbursable expenses, but I think the only place that stepped forward was was what? Oh, I'm sorry, Freeze.
Okay, all right. Just for clarification.
Okay, next we had a request for Hands of Grace request. Mike, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, Hands of Grace has been in operation since 2008. It started at the Willing Partners building there in Independence and has provided help through the food bank to a lot of families in the, I guess, 12 years it's been in operation. And the whole time that Hands of Grace has been in operation, it's relied totally on people in the community providing donations and church donations and businesses. But this year, and like I said, they've never asked for help. And but it's been extremely hit hard a little bit this year. People are out of work. They're not able to give donations like they usually do. We've seen an increase in people taking advantage of the food bank and through need. There's a real need there. A lot of people that are legitimately out of work. I know in everything like that, food banks, there's people that take advantage of it, but there is a real need, I think, and any help the board could provide would be, there's people there. I can, tell you that there's people from every district of the county. I see people from Freeze. I see people from Baywood. I see people, there's even people from the upper end, Comer's Rock, up in Flat Ridge that, use the food bank. And so if there's a need and would appreciate any consideration.
Mike, this is Tom. I think this is absolutely a worthwhile effort for us to try to endorse. I mean, if we want to take money and affect people that are really in a crisis, this is the organization that can help us do that.
Yeah, and there's the costs associated with running the food bank. You know, there's the insurance on the building. There's the electric bills each month. You know, we have about 15 different coolers. You know, where we store meat and things like that. And like I say, there's definitely a need in the community. I've seen people using the food bank that I've never seen there before in the last few weeks.
Bill, Mr. Shepley and Mr. Chairman, we just basically approved $5,000 to put lights up. And while I know that has no, seriously, I know that has great value. That has great value to lift the spirit of the people in our community. That's what it's about. But if we're going to put $5,000 towards lights, I would recommend we put $5,000 towards this. This is putting food on people's tables.
Yep. Their request is for $12,000 total.
Well, I'm not going to say I'd wait to defer to you to tell us if you think we can make that happen. But I wouldn't be opposed to that. I mean, there are people out here who are going without meals because they don't have jobs.
Well, we agree with you completely, and one of the things that Lisa and I think we heard today that we're going to be looking into more detail, and Lisa, you can chime in when I get done, is that it looks like agencies such as this that are not for profit that provide food may be something that is eligible under the CARES Act. Several of the counties on the phone today said from their research it is reimbursable. So would you like to add anything to that, Lisa?
Just Supervisor Hash, if you could confirm that the increase has been since March and seems to be directly correlated with COVID-19. I do think that might be something that we could, the county could help with as far as pass-through dollars from the CARES Act. And going forward, the $12,000 I think is based on the communication that Mr. Smith had with Feeding America and how much that costs per month to provide food to a specific bank. So that was where that $12,000 came from, would be $1,000 a month based for the future allocation.
Yeah, we track the numbers of the people that come through. We also families register for the once a month giveaway that we've been doing now. The feeding the kids program. We just have to see children in the car. To comply, and we track those numbers for the children also. But where the boxes go out, we have a roster, so we can track those numbers.
Have you seen an increase in the participants since March and the COVID-19 impact?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
That's the key reimbursable component, we think, is the difference between what it would normally have been like and what it is now due to the coronavirus. So, I mean, this is definitely a worthwhile endeavor from our perspectives, and we'd like to try to, at least from the staff's point of view, we'd love to be able to see how we can support this organization and others that do similar work.
Supervisor Fant, in the local support, we have 12,000 going to Hands of Grace, and then we have 25,000 going to Feed America. I think the money it's been well articulated by Tom and Mike, is money well spent in this particular case, because this money is going directly to an organization that's putting food directly on the tables of citizens within the county. The question I have is, are we getting the same effect from the 25,000 that we're providing to Feed America, or is there some opportunity to readdress that 25K to organizations either within Feed America or within the county that are maybe servicing a different portion of the county, but more directly than what Feeding America does?
Yeah. Mr. Smith would like to.
And speaking to the president of Feeding America and asking him about, the Elk Creek project, and he spoke of, Feeding America's desire to do all they could within the counties, and the fact that Providence, how successful that is, how successful they were at Grayson Highland School until they were asked to move there. And that's when Supervisor Rebels, I think, got involved and got it up at the White Top area. The president did speak that there's been a heavy response in the White Top area. They were amazed, I think, at how quickly people learned about it and came out. And Supervisor Rebels, you may have more to say about that.
Well, Mitch, the last time they came here, over 200 families were out and were able to receive food as a result of the program. I have to tell you, Feed America isn't perfect, but I'll tell you, it's about as close as anything I know in terms of getting food to people who really need it. Yeah. And I mean, it's a great program, and it has really touched the lives of literally hundreds of people in the West End. I mean, yeah. I hate to say it, but I was kind of glad when they had to move from the school, because we moved it to the community center, and it's more than double the number of people in the West End who use it.
Wow. And I had actually visited Providence Station when Feeding America came there and started that up. I had actually gone there and helped pass out food at one of the times there, and it was amazing. And Supervisor Ash, you may have more to say about Providence, but it is amazing the people that came out. And then I was also at Grayson Highlands during one of the times when it was amazing the response that people coming out to that too. But I agree.
Yeah, they have a great group there. They have a great group there, Providence, that works there with that food program, and people use it. And Hands of Grace, where we pick up our food is through Feeding America. We pay so much per pound. That's how it's done. It's weighed out by poundage, and then we pay so much per pound for the food. But yeah, the Feeding America program is a good thing.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not poo-pooing the Feed America per se. What we're proposing is funding directly a nonprofit that is providing this service to our citizens. So my question is, if we're doing the same thing in Providence and at White Top, is there a nonprofit that's doing that, or is Feeding America, the organization, actually coming here and running those two sites? Because if we've got another organization up at White Top and another organization in Providence that's doing what Hands of Grace is doing in Elk Creek, then could we make better use of those funds by funding them directly, like we're proposing for Hands of Grace? That's where I'm after.
Supervisor Rebels and Supervisor Hash may want to chime in, but I know of no other organizations that are doing it to this magnitude. You might have a church that has a pantry or whatever, but I don't know of any other organization that's doing it to the magnitude of Feeding America in either location.
John, John, I would say in the West End, Feed America is the one who is the catalyst and the provider of the food. I have to give accolades to Lisa Blevins and Skyline National Bank because they have been workers who've helped Feed America get into the community and to let people know what's going on. But it's Feed America up here that is really making the difference.
I know at Providence, Grace Baptist Church, a lot of their membership works out there. And I don't know if they take total sponsorship of that food bank or what, but I know a lot of their membership works there at that food bank.
Okay, then
Yeah, Mike.
What I am thinking, and this is again not a huge change, but if we're providing $25,000 to Feed America to do Providence and to do White Top, then that comes out to $12,500 per site. I propose that we do $12,500 for Hands of Grace.
I would support that, John.
Good plan.
Okay, no more discussion? And our budget can handle that, and as if it's declared emergency, as they have changed that, get some of that grant money.
Yeah, it's a pretty strong possibility, not a given, but we heard good things about that possibility today.
Okay, that's something staff will work on.
Yep.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay,
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to go on record applauding my colleague Mike Hash. I tell you, he's demonstrating a commitment to the people that is a role model for all of us. And Mike, kudos to you. And I just want you to know I really admire you for what you're doing.
That's good.
I appreciate it. I know someone who compels me to, who gives me that heart to want to help others, and I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
I'll second that.
We all agree here too.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, I guess I got to agree, or I'd be the odd man out. So I'm on board.
We've been putting John to work. It's nothing I do. Tina and Johnny Johnson, they work really hard, and the whole Elk Creek community. It's not just our church. Our church maybe come up with the idea, but the Elk Creek community, business people and stuff is, like I said, have kept it going these past 12 years, and we've hit a rough spot with this current situation, and we really appreciate it.
I took 4 boxes down there the other day, and you thought I'd given them $1 million.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
All right, that's a good deal. I guess we'll move on to the budget document. Has anybody got any comments or budget?
Mr. Chairman, this is John. You might find it surprising that I have a few.
All right, bring it on.
All right. Overall, I'm comfortable with where we are with the budget. I think you all have done some great work, and the work that's been done in the last few weeks to reduce the appropriation amount is commendable.
Thank you.
And these things may not necessarily be in any particular order, but I'll just hit on them. In the PSA budget, I noticed that it was a reduction by $15K specific to a project. What does that mean? Does that mean we're delaying that project, or we're not going to do that project? What does that mean?
That is correct. That's we had a project slated for, it was a construction project for a extension of a water line. That grant was actually withdrawn by the grantor, correct, Mr. Smith?
Yeah, the $100,000 from Mount Rogers Planning District.
They pulled that back.
Yes, because it's not, they have people that have already, or counties that have already had expenditures that are ready for reimbursement. The federal government has not paid some of that grant money out, and so they're having to take their money and pay the people that have already had expenditures. Since we didn't have expenditures toward this project already, they pulled that money.
Okay, I'm good. The next one, were we able to get a number on operational fund shortfall for the different emergency services?
What was the question? Question again, Supervisor Payne.
The emergency, the agencies, our first responders, the volunteer side, fire and rescue, a lot of them do a significant amount of fundraising for operational funds. A lot of those weren't able to happen, or aren't able to happen right now. One of the things I think we discussed a couple of work sessions ago was trying to figure out what that shortfall was going to be and whether or not the county could support those agencies with the operational funds. Is that included in this budget? I didn't identify the line item per se, and that's why I was wondering if we included that or were able to figure it out.
No, that is not included, and that is I'm not sure how we can qualify that at this point. We are working on that in the background, but it is not included as part of the budget process, no.
So we've got agencies that may have shortfalls in their budgets, but we don't know what that is right now. Is that fair?
If you're talking, yes, specifically the volunteer agencies, that is correct.
Yeah, that's who I'm talking about. Those are the ones I'm worried about not having the funds they need. Okay. Is that a requirement out there that Paul's working on, or to try to figure that out? Because it could be a pretty substantial number if, take rugby, for example, or the White Top, not rugby, but the White Top Maple Festival, I think generates a few tens of thousands of dollars of operational funds that they don't have now.
Supervisor Fan, I do know that Mr. Hoyle is working with the agencies on some of these opportunities and efficiencies that they're facing now. I think there may be a possibility in working with another company that the barcoding system may be able to work out for the maple syrup. I don't know that they'd recover all costs, but all of their profit from that. But I think there is a solution coming up, and I know he's meeting with each agency. He was out in Troutdale the other day. I've not heard the results of all that, so I wouldn't be able to tell if he has all that information yet or not, as far as fundraising.
And so, is it possible, given that these are volunteer organizations that are directly affected by COVID, not government agencies, but volunteer, would they possibly qualify for CARES funding?
In in my opinion, and Lisa, if you have different opinion, then feel free to share it. I don't think necessarily in the CARES Act funding. I think the more likely possibility, and one of the areas that we're hearing in the debate about the HEROES Act, is that there is money designated specifically in that area that doesn't seem to be in as much controversy as some of the other areas in the HEROES Act. So the more likely source of money to be able to offset deficits with our response agencies would probably come from the HEROES Act if it passes.
Okay.
Now, Bill, let me ask you a follow-up question.
Okay.
If the county, and again, I haven't studied this thing the way you have, but if the county was to allocate money to support fire and rescue needs based on what they've spent for COVID-19 issues, wouldn't that be more likely to get reimbursement than if the agency was to file for it? In other words, if the county reimburses the agency and then shows that as a light fire and rescue expense, it seems to me the CARE Act might consider that a higher priority for reimbursement.
Yeah, and each of these, that's a great question. All approval of the use of the CARES Act money has to come through the county administration and the board of supervisors. That is, so no agency could go out and apply for CARES money without going through the county. So the coordinated effort to respond on a county-wide basis, once we find out whether that is reimbursable, would be greatly enhanced by the fact that it's all being done in a coordinated way through the county. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I mean, and it seems to follow what some of the requirements are in the CARES Act to me. But again, like I said, I haven't spent that much time really studying it as you have. So I would defer to you for that kind of detail.
I appreciate that. What we're discovering is right now there is no CARES Act expert in the country, and so everyone's trying to figure out, okay, does this apply? Does that apply? It's sort of it's a work in progress.
I think Bill gave a good analogy earlier today, though, when I don't know what meeting we was in at that time, but he said that he was asked that question, and he said, I think we'll ultimately end up, VACO will probably give a position on what's reimbursable that all the counties could follow, and that would probably be a safe measure through VACO. I think
yeah, and I have to say, VACO deserves, and Dean Lynch, they deserve tremendous amount of credit. They have kept us so well informed. It's possibly the strongest organization that I've ever been associated with. It's a union of various independent entities. It's been absolutely amazing. As soon as we start to think about what does this mean and how much is this going to affect us, they've already gotten people that have analyzed it and sent us the estimate. So we will get more information from them. And we have a meeting. When is our next meeting, Lisa? One with Virginia Tech with Wednesday to get more details about what is eligible, what things are eligible.
Yes, more group discussion. Additionally, I would like to add that I had a conversation with Mr. Hoyle today, and he also had informed me that he's making sure that each volunteer agency is also seeking small business loans or small business grants in addition to local support. So he is working on two different angles, making sure that our agencies are supported as best they can be.
Yeah, I'm okay with the grants, but I'm nervous about volunteer agencies that we all know are in varying degrees of financial stress, taking on loans in order to cover operational costs. And so my fear is that we've got, and I'm mostly talking about the rescue side, because I think the fire side in most cases are a little bit better shape, but I could be wrong. I'm fearful that if we do not anticipate with some sort of planning of possible funds needed for our no-fail mission of providing first responders, we might find ourselves in a budget predicament that is avoidable. And so I would ask, in my opinion, that the staff look at ways that we can not only identify what that amount is, but even at this point, just identify an amount that we can fence for the possible shortfall as part of the contingency fund.
You got three people in here shaking their heads yes. We agree.
Okay. Then I'll leave it up to you, but here we are right at the beginning of passing a budget, and we've got a potential, let's say, $100,000 hole that may crop up because we're not anticipating it. So I just ask that we take that into consideration.
Yeah, we agree completely.
Okay.
I mean, John, I agree with you. I agree with you. I know last year the net profit from the Maple Festival was close to $30,000. And that's one festival in White Top. I don't know what the net revenue would look like in the others, but this is not going to be a $5 or $10 or $15 or $20,000 issue for the agencies who rely on those festival activities, because you know the Maple Festival was the biggie of the year for White Top and Mount Rogers. So I agree with you, John. I think we need to be proactive in trying to reserve funds, knowing that there's going to be shortfalls.
Well, we've talked in the past that how difficult it is to raise funds and how distracting in some ways that might be towards recruiting and retaining people, because it's not why they joined the organization. And so for the long term, this may be the, when we start a discussion with these agencies about how are we going to continue to provide these services in an environment where revenue and personnel are declining. How do we do that? And I think this is an opportunity to begin that discussion. But we need to anticipate it for this coming year.
Yep.
The next thing is, and this is more just a request, is I know when the budget appears in the paper, it looks very different than the budget we stare at on our iPads. Can we see that in advance?
Absolutely.
Sure. Actually, Linda gave me that template today, and I would appreciate any feedback on that. It should match exactly, maybe in a little bit different order, but and there may be like maintenance is all combined together instead of broken out to each particular area. But the totals will match, and absolutely, I'll be happy to share that with you.
Great.
Next to the last one is any progress on the debt discussion? I know it's not necessarily critical to the passing of this budget, but the refinancing of the debt project.
Supervisor Fan, that is definitely on the list. I have not done anything with it yet, but we plan on doing something, and Lisa is shaking her head that she has. So I'll let Lisa tell you what's been done so far.
I have actually created a file, and I'm collecting names of different agencies that can help us with that particular task, whether refinancing or restructuring, either way. But I have started a file of sources that we can reach out to guide us in that particular task.
Okay.
It's very important. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, it's very important to us, and it has a great opportunity. It's just got caught up in other stuff in the last week and hadn't had a chance to move forward, but we will quickly.
Understand. Last thing is, last year I think we were very successful in the budget through the narrative that Bill and Mitch and Lisa helped craft and the priorities for the county going forward. Given what has changed this year and our 5% appropriation reduction across the board, not across the board, but with the goal of a 5% reduction, I think it would be helpful to lay out a similar narrative with the priorities that we agreed to as part of this budget process as we go towards approval, and also for the public as the paper covers it. So I would encourage you, Bill, to develop a similar narrative with those priorities so we can articulate to the public what this budget is doing and, more importantly, what it's not doing.
We will do that.
But also be clear in this, so we try to reduce the misunderstanding of budget cut versus, appropriation reduction, which is different.
Absolutely,
with that,
we will do that.
Yeah. With that, I'll turn it back over to you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks, sir.
Mr. Chairman, this is Tom. I do have one other question for Bill.
Okay, go ahead.
Sure.
Bill, have we made any progress with the school system on advancing the idea of some strategic planning?
Yeah,
I have
a written guarantee that they will work with us on that. But nothing has been done on that at this moment. We haven't reached out to any consulting group or anything so far.
With all due respect of you and Kelly, and I do mean that sincerely, I really think this needs to be driven by the boards of the two entities. And I guess my question is, have we had any conversation with their board, between our chairman, their chairman? I just think this is such a critical thing. I mean, I read on the internet, I get the run-up paper on the internet, and, the school system up there is looking at a $7 or $8 million reduction in budget this year. And, of course, their budget's far larger than ours, but it's still 4.2% of their budget.
Yeah.
And they're talking about having to redesign and rethink and whatever. I mean, this is not just us. This is everybody. And I really think having a commitment and a timeline to move forward is absolutely critical.
Yeah.
And I look to you, Bill, and to our chairman, Kenneth, to figure out how do we get this to go forward.
Yeah. Mr. Chairman, do you have anything you want to add on that?
I'm game for getting together with the other chairman. I guess everybody's got on hold with this COVID that, we do better if we're face to face instead of trying to do stuff over a phone.
Yeah.
I understand that, Kenneth, and I concur. I concur with that.
Okay. Well, that's something that we need to work on, that's for sure, but hopefully one of these days we can look at one another. Okay, any other discussion on the budget? Okay, hearing none, I guess we look for motion to approve our budget.
Not to approve, but to advertise.
I make that motion, Mr. Chairman.
I'll second that. Okay.
I heard Mr. Revels make a motion and Mr. Hayes second. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
And aye.
Mr. Chairman, I thought I heard Supervisor Sutherland second. Who did you say did?
You may have. I thought it was Mr. Revel.
It was both she and I, Supervisor Hash, but if she wants the second, she's got it.
It doesn't matter. No big
No.
deal.
Okay.
Not about me.
Yeah. So the budget has been approved, and do appreciate all the staff's work on it. I know it's a hard time of the year, but I think you did a really good job with that.
Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I want to make sure I'm clear. The motion was to advertise or was the motion to approve?
Advertise.
Advertising, yes.
Okay, I'm clear.
Approving you.
These phones are going in and out. I think we're good. We've made the motion to advertise, and all.
Yeah.
Motion and second, and all is approved.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. All right, if nothing else, we need to go into executive session, closed session for just a little while. Discuss prospective business or industrial. Expansion of existing business or industry pursuant to 2.2-3711A5. Code of Virginia. I hear a motion to go into closed session.
Supervisor Grant, so moved.
Supervisor Perry, second. Motion second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Okay, we will go in closed session just as soon as Carl gives us the word.